In this web lecture, we will look at the trolley problem from an engineering and responsible innovation perspective. The trolley problem goes, as we explained, as follows. Suppose you are at the forking path of a downhill railway track and a trolley cart is hurtling down and will pass the junction where you stand. There's a lever that you can operate. If you do nothing, the trolley will drive on and kill 5 people who are tied down to the track further down the hill. If you pull the lever, the trolley will be diverted to the other track where there is only 1 person tied down. Is it morally permissible to pull the lever, or do you even have a moral obligation to do so? Almost all philosophers in the last 3 decades have been raised on so-called trolley cases. If you would like to do a PhD in trolley analysis, that would actually be a respectable topic in philosophy departments around the world, assuming that you would be able to add something to the vast literature. The reason why we pay attention to this artificial thought experiment is not to introduce you to the extensive body of literature that could be the subject of a separate MOOC, but rather to illustrate how thinking about responsible innovation requires a point of view on making moral choices and responsibility that is different from the ones used to analyze trolley scenarios and the like. I would like to point out that it adds a valuable dimension to our thinking about responsibility in a high-tech world. A simple calculation in the trolley case shows that one can save 4 lives by throwing the switch. The majority of people think, after some reflection and calculation, that it is morally permissible, and most of them even think one has a moral obligation to save 5, although 1 person loses his life as a result. Now suppose we change the story a bit and take the switch out of the story. Instead, a fat man is standing on a bridge over the track in front of one. By pushing the fat man onto the track, one can stop the trolley before it hits the junction. One would expect that people would react in the same way to this case as to the lever version, since it implies the same numbers and basically the same calculation, saving 5 by causing the death of 1. Empirical research shows, however, and some argue even that brain imaging studies also point in that direction, that we react in a different way to both cases, although the numbers and the calculations are the same. In the lever case, we primarily relied on reasoning and calculation in terms of lives lost. Given the option of pushing the fat man, we tend to react with disgust or laughter. It seems just a preposterous idea to use someone as a block, and by doing so, kill him. What you will not find in the trolley literature, however, is the following. Engineers and designers of technical artifacts often reply to trolley cases by saying that it is a stupid piece of railway infrastructure and a very bad design. Especially engineers immediately start to think about a better system, better designs, innovations, in order to prevent this tragic choice from arising in the first place. The infrastructure should have included, as they would suggest, early warning systems, automated braking systems, kill switches to prevent such a tragic choice for the operator near the switch. Again, this is not a legitimate move in a philosophy seminar, but it is a most interesting move in another context, namely the one that pertains to preventing deaths in rail transport and safety of rail infrastructure. What this response clearly brings to the fore is that in trolley cases the situation is given, as you would expect in a thought experiment. Engineers, however, with his or her preoccupation to improve the world by engineering design and characteristic unwillingness to take the status quo for granted, has difficulty accepting the stipulation in the thought experiment. His or her focus is on changing the world for the better by design. His or her conception of responsibility, therefore, extends to the design histories which lead up to tragic choices. The dominant mode of moral thinking about trolleys, where conditions are given and immutable, draws attention away from the fact that problematic situations in reality typically do not come about as a result of the hard work of imaginative philosophers preparing for an academic paper, but are the result of numerous prior design decisions by many others and not necessarily the final agent who faces that choice. Moral dilemmas in daily and professional life and certainly the ones that involve technology, are almost always the result of hundreds, if not thousands, of decisions and choices by design agents. Design histories thus matter in the real world, and it is as important to learn to think about the ways to prevent dilemmatic and tragic choice situations from coming into existence as it is to learn how to think about them once they have come into existence. When we are thinking about designing and developing new intelligent or autonomous cars, new high-tech systems, new IT infrastructures, new materials, designer foods, drugs, energy options, we are thereby shaping the choice situations or choice architectures of future users. Engineers know that the best way in real life to deal with moral problems for these situations often is by anticipation and not by waiting for dilemmas to occur and then dealing with them in a more or less acceptable way by limiting the damage. Does it mean that the study of trolley cases is useless? Not at all. The types of moral considerations, concerns, lines of reasoning, moral categories that are invoked in thinking about them can be fruitfully used in the design of high-tech innovations, systems, infrastructures, and contexts where humans are near the switch or at the table. And you have to involve the stakeholders and their values. Responsible innovation is about anticipating moral choice and taking responsibility for the responsibility of others, be they fellow citizens or our grandchildren. It concerns designing and shaping technology in the understanding that future users, consumers, patients, citizens, and future generations will be stuck with what engineers and applied scientists have come up with today and have thought about or forgot to think about long before. Their ability to take responsibility will be a function of a long and detailed design history, and this applies equally to energy options, internet protocols, smart cities, and new materials. Thank you for your attention.